4 in fantasy football, huh? Talk about a roller coaster. Upsets everywhere, some really, really close calls, and, well, let's just say some standout performances that kind of make you scratch your head.
Yeah, no kidding. Week 4, that's for sure. It definitely keeps things interesting, right?
For sure. So, break my stride right off the bat. A win with a losing record in all play. How's that even work?
Yeah, break my stride. Interesting one, for sure. It looks like from what I see here, they really went all in on those big plays.
Yeah.
Sacrificing a bit of consistency to get those high scores.
Risky business.
Definitely riskier in, like, your typical league. But for fantasy, it seems to be paying off,
High risk, high reward. Speaking of, gotta talk about tick, tick, boom. 0-4. Ouch.
Right.
Especially with all those points they're putting up. And that close call against just once before I die. Brutal.
Tick, tick, boom. The classic tale, Bad luck or just, like, bad management. Tough to say. They've got the most points against them in the whole league, which is, that tells you something right there.
So not necessarily a bad team, just bad opponents.
More or less. Their opponents are consistently bringing the heat. But here's the thing. Even with the losing streak, they've actually got the highest manager score this week.
Hold on. Back it up. Manager score, for those of us who, aren't fantasy wizards, what is that exactly?
Oh, right. Yeah. Good point. It's basically, it tells you how good your lineup choices are each week. Like you versus how your players were projected to do.
Okay, got it.
So, yeah, tick, tick, boom, 0-4, sure. But their manager score says they're picking the right players. They're just on a bad streak,
So there's still hope.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, the kitchen, remember how they were killing it?
Yeah.
First loss this week, and not exactly pretty.
Yeah, I saw that.
And, got to wonder if benching Troy Anderson was the right call.
He did have a pretty good week, didn't he?
Highest scoring bench player, actually.
Wow. So the kitchen maybe played it too safe.
Possibly. It's a tough one, Do you trust the data or do you go with your gut?
$1 million question.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Absolutely. All right, before we get too deep into the strategy side of things, can we take a minute to appreciate any given Friday night?
Back-to-back weeks, highest score. It's impressive.
They are on fire. Definitely the team to beat.
Yeah, they're all about consistency. Even when Kyler Murray, their QB1, had a bit of a quiet week, only 12 points, they still dominated.
Not relying on just one superstar. They've got a solid team across the board.
Exactly. Depth is key.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have Dog Pound. Lowest score of the week.
Yeah. Tough to win with only 163 points. It happens.
It really highlights how much individual players can swing things.
For sure.
Yeah.
You've got Lenekaku's Ghost benefiting from Trevor Lawrence's 18-point performance, while Dog Pound had Josh Allen and David Carr combining for only 15. Big difference.
Yeah, even the big names can have an off week. It's a reminder that drafting those big names is only half the battle.
You got to know how to use them.
Exactly. And having a deep roster, being able to adapt when things go south.
Crucial. All right, so we've covered the upsets, the close calls, even touched on some of the management decisions. Couldn't agree more. It's about having options.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing when to make those tough calls, those bench decisions, makes all the difference.
Speaking of, can we talk about Jordan Love for a sec? Remember, you drafted him thinking breakout season, right?
Right.
Well, this week, he delivered.
Yeah, he did. QB of the week, even.
Pretty impressive.
It just goes to show you that sometimes those safer picks, they aren't always the way to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go with your gut.
Love over Allen, huh? Bold move.
And it paid off.
Yeah.
Big time.
So, shifting gears a bit here, let's talk about those calling the shots, manager scores, tick, tick, boom, top of the leaderboard this week. The kitchen, not so much.
Yeah, like we were saying before, that Anderson decision really hurt the kitchen. Makes you wonder if maybe they're relying a little too much on the algorithms.
Jada can be deceiving.
Absolutely. But then you have tick, tick, boom, right? Losing streak aside, their decisions. Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently exceeding expectations. Just goes to show you, even when the wins aren't there, good management shines through.
So could Tick Tick Boom be this season's comeback story?
Wouldn't that be something? I'd say keep an eye on them for sure. But, Dog Pound, on the other hand, they've been consistently underperforming. Might be time for a bit of a strategy shift there.
Right. Drafting a good team on paper is one thing, but knowing how to leverage those players, when to make those tough calls, that's what separates the casuals from the contenders.
100%. It's not just about picking games. It's about understanding potential, anticipating performance,
Got it. So beyond those we've already talked about, any other standout performances this week? Who are our positional leaders?
Well, at running back, Derrick Henry, no surprise there, I'm sure. He absolutely crushed it. 38.15 points.
Oh, yeah, I had him in my lineup. Those were some fun points to watch roll in. What about wide receiver?
Wide receiver, Nico Collins actually had a really strong showing, 29.1. A bit of his prize, but, he's got the potential.
Wait, Collins, he's on Tick Tick Boom, right?
He is, yeah. Like I said, they've got some real talent on that team. Just got to find a way to put it all together.
Fingers crossed for them. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The good, the bad, the close calls, the blowouts. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to the kitchen for a second. Specifically, that decision to bench Anderson. Seems like, in this case, the data might have steered them wrong. Makes you think, right, like, how much are we really willing to trust these algorithms? What's next? Letting a robot draft our whole team.
It's a slippery slope, maybe. But, you can't deny the data, right? It's all about finding that balance, I guess, between, what the numbers say and what your gut tells you.
And sometimes your gut knows best. In the kitchen's case, maybe that hunch would have been the difference maker.
It's easy to get caught up in the stats, especially when you're facing a tough opponent. But that instinct, that intuition, that's valuable too.
So it's the age-old debate then. Trust the numbers or trust your gut.
Pretty much. And I don't think there's a right answer, Every week's a gamble, every decision's a risk. That's part of the fun of it, isn't it?
Keeps things interesting, that's for sure. It's like a mental battle, right? Against yourself, against your opponents, against the data itself.
Totally. So one of the biggest things we're seeing is this whole backfield by committee thing exploding.
Tell me about it.
It's like, remember when you drafted that surefire, workhorse running back?
Right, the guy, yeah.
Those days, I think, might be over.
Gone. Like, poof, Atlanta. Bijan Robinson, right? Top draft pick.
Everybody and their mother drafted him.
Exactly. Big plans, right? Big workload. And then week 4 hits, and what happened? Playing time down.
Dipped.
Allgaier comes in.
And not just comes in, he out-carried Robinson.
Out-carried him. So, for those Robinson owners out there, is this like a blip? Is this a one-time thing? Or is Allgaier going to be like a thorn in his side?
And the thing is, it wasn't just the carries. It's that Allgaier was so efficient with the touches he got.
Yeah.
So it's like, coaches are looking at that going, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of, maybe, Tampa Bay.
Oh, boy.
Rachaad White. We thought he was the guy, right? Mm-hmm. Presumed starter.
Right.
Rookie Bucky Irving's coming in hot.
Yeah, he is.
Outperforming him. Goal line work.
That says a lot right there. When they're giving the rookie the goal line work over the veteran.
It's a changing of the guard, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. Big questions.
Big questions. And if you thought that was crazy, hold on to your hats, fantasy fans, because Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
Kareem Hunt.
Out of nowhere.
Back in KC. What?
You couldn't write this stuff.
It's like a time warp or something. What does this mean for our fantasy teams?
It's huge. He comes in, he makes an impact right away.
Right away. Big workload, especially after, the fumble there with Steele.
Yeah, early fumble for Steele, open the door.
Because have to wonder, though, right? If Steele doesn't fumble,
right,
does Hunt see that much action?
Good question.
It's a real-life fantasy experiment.
It really is. We talk about it all the time on here.
This is what we live for. This is the stuff.
It's like you almost want to design your team to have a little bit of that.
Right, a little chaos.
A little chaos.
Embrace the chaos.
Embrace it, because that's where the fun is. That's what fantasy football is all about. But you're right. It's like, is this the end for Steele?
Right.
Is Hunt back?
As a reliable,
Yeah, as a set and forget starter? I don't know.
See, these are the questions that'll keep you up at night.
Oh, for sure. And glued to those waiver wires.
Oh, yeah. You gotta be. Speaking of things that'll keep you up at night, injuries.
The worst part.
The worst.
It's the worst.
It throws even the most perfectly crafted, fantasy plan.
Yep.
Completely off the rails.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing, right? Injuries, as much as we hate them,
right,
they create opportunity.
100%.
Yeah.
One person's misfortune is another person's,
waiver wire steal.
Waiver wire steal.
Yeah.
League winner. We've all been there.
Exactly. Kansas City, for example, right?
Yeah.
Rashee Rice, done.
Tough break.
Season-ending injury. That's rough.
Yeah.
Huge blow.
To the Chiefs and fantasy owners everywhere.
Big time. But on the flip side,
opportunity.
Targets open up.
Who's going to step up?
Xavier Worthy.
Okay, yeah.
This is a name I think people need to know.
For sure. He made some noise.
Stepped up after Rice went down, even had that, was it like a 54-yard touchdown?
Beautiful, like textbook.
Right. So there's potential there.
100%. Big playability.
Big question mark, though, right? Consistency.
Right.
Can he handle a bigger role week after week?
Right. Can he be the guy? Yeah. You know, we've seen flashes.
That's what we want to know.
Exactly. We'll see. That's something to watch.
Speaking of watching and injuries, unfortunately, Anthony Richardson, Indianapolis.
Already a tough start.
Tough start. Now a hip injury.
Yeah, not good. Makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder about the durability. Is this just a bump in the road, or is this a sign of things to come?
Yeah.
And what does this mean with Flacco possibly coming in?
Right, because he's a very different style of quarterback.
Completely different.
Right. So does that mean they lean more on the run game?
Exactly.
What happens to the receivers?
Pivotal questions.
Fantasy implications galore.
Absolutely.
We love it.
And, you know, while we're talking injuries, shaking things up, we got to go to Green Bay.
Oh, yeah, Green Bay. Christian Watson.
Another tough one.
Unfortunate for him, but hey.
Door wide open.
Doors wide open. Dontavian Wicks.
Yep.
One of those 2 touchdowns.
She showed up.
Showed up.
Yeah.
So managers are scrambling, right? They're going to the waiver wire trying to scoop him up.
Oh, yeah. First thing Tuesday morning.
But the big question is, can he keep it up? Is this sustainable? Or is this a flash in the pan?
1 week wonder, or
right.
Is this the real deal?
Exactly.
We love those breakout performances, but we also love consistency.
Because that's where the points are.
That's the name of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And that brings up a really important point about fantasy football in general.
Which is?
Knowing when to buy low and when to sell high.
Ooh. Okay. Buying low, selling high. Let's break that down. What are we talking about here? Who should we be looking at? Give me some names.
All right. So you look at a guy like David Montgomery, on fire this season.
Yeah.
But.
There's always a but.
There's always a but. Can he keep it up at this pace?
Right.
Is this his peak value?
Yeah.
Or is there still room to grow?
That's the $1 million question.
It is. And you don't want to be holding the bag when his value starts to plummet. On the other hand.
Okay, flip side. Who's on the buy low side?
DeAndre Swift.
Okay, Swift.
Monster week.
He was on fire.
Right. After a slow start.
Rough start.
So is he back?
Right.
If he is, can you get him at a discount?
Ooh. And from that owner who's panicking.
Exactly.
Because of those first few weeks.
Exactly.
I like it. So much to consider.
There is.
So many moving parts.
Always.
That's why we love it.
That's why we're here.
Right.
That's why we're here every single week.
Yeah. So we got our league standings pulled up. Of course, we got the week 5 matchups and some pretty interesting notes on team performance so far.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to try to equip you with the insights to dominate your matchups this week and, kind of understand where we are in the league overall.
Absolutely.
It's week 5. Stakes are getting higher. Your decisions are tougher, right? Let's break down these matchups and uncover some of these hidden advantages that could lead you to victory.
Yeah, I think this is the part of the season where it's really time to start thinking strategically, right? Especially with those bye weeks coming up. You really got to stay ahead of the curve.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point. And, speaking of staying ahead of the curve, one of these matchups that I think is really intriguing this week is just once before I die, they're sitting at a very comfortable 3-1.
Right.
But they're going up against Crow Nation, who surprisingly is only 1-3. But I feel like based on their roster, this could be one of those trap games.
For sure. Just once before I die. I mean, they have been a powerhouse so far. But, it's tough to maintain that momentum, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you've got a key player like Jalen Hurts out on a bye week.
That is huge. And they're playing Crow Nation, who is better than their record shows, but they've had surprisingly low points.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, right? They have the potential, but they're not delivering. Yeah. So, as a just once before I die manager, I'd be a little worried. Maybe look at some backup options. Maybe, some wide receivers going up against some weaker defenses.
Just work that waiver wire, baby.
Exactly. Find those diamonds in the rough.
And while we are on the topic of big matchups, right? We got a sibling rivalry. We got Break My Stride. They're sitting at 2-2.
Okay.
They're going up against Tick Tick Boom, who is still looking for their first win of the season, 0-4.
Oof, yeah, that's a tough one.
But BT, Tick Tick Boom, leads the league in points against. So, their opponents are putting up huge numbers every week.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like it's almost a silver lining, right? Because it means their offense, they're constantly having to play catch up. It could lead to a very high scoring game, especially, with that added sibling rivalry element. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love it. Some bulletin board material right there for tick, tick, boom. And, while we're looking at individual matchups, we got to zoom out. We got to look at the league as a whole. And I don't know if you saw this, but we have a 5-way tie for first place.
Oh, wow.
It is anybody's game, which I love.
Yeah, you can't take anything for granted, that's for sure.
Yeah. And this early in the season, too. Yeah. I mean, any given Sunday, right? Any given week, anything can happen. Yeah. And, we talk about teams exceeding expectations, right? We got to talk about the Kitchen. They're 3-1. They start off really strong, but I'm wondering if they're going to start to cool off a little bit. And here's why. They got Lamar Jackson at QB. Great, powerhouse. But our league is a super flex. You need 2 quarterbacks. They haven't really invested in that second quarterback spot.
Yeah, that's going to hurt them.
Yeah, and especially with bye weeks starting now.
Oh, huge.
Like this week alone, you've got the Lions, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Titans all on bye.
And those are teams with, quarterbacks people are going to have in their starting lineups, right?
Yeah.
So, it's more important than ever to have that depth on your roster.
And I think the Kitchen is going to be a cautionary tale this week of, what not to do when it comes to Superflex. Now, speaking of things that could go wrong, I'm going to talk about injuries, right?
Yeah.
Backpacks, they're sitting at 2-2. They're going up against Lene Kakua's Ghost, who's at 3-1. This would seem like a pretty straightforward matchup. But Backpacks, they're hurting right now. Rasheed Rice, he's probably out long-term. Anthony Richardson, they don't know what his status is. Again, Superflex, that's a huge blow.
Ugh. Yeah, if you were depending on Richardson for that Superflex spot, you got to be scrambling right now.
Big time. And Lene Kakua's Ghost, I feel like they have to be licking their chops a little bit. They've, they got to take advantage of this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a win's a win, right?
Exactly. Got to take it. And while we are on the topic of, things not going as expected, I want to talk about Gin Party for a second. Garrett Wilson, he was, hyped up as like this surefire, WR1 top 5 draft pick.
Yeah.
He's with Aaron Rodgers now, right? It's not translating.
Right. I mean, it's still early, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a minute, for that chemistry to develop, for players to kind of get used to their new environment, new offense.
It's a long season.
It is a long season, exactly. So, keep an eye on it, but I wouldn't overreact just yet.
Perfect advice. That is why you are the expert. So before we let everyone go, what is that one maybe like thought-provoking question our listeners should be asking themselves as they set their lineups as they head into week 5?
You know what? This week, as you're looking at your roster, think about this. What's the one position on your team that you are most worried about, especially with these bye weeks starting to hit? And what can you do now, like right now, to address that before it becomes a problem,
I love it.
Whether it's making a trade, scouring that waiver wire, just be proactive.
Be proactive, take control, don't let your fantasy team be decided by chance and bad luck. Right. All right, well, on that note, thank you so much for all the incredible insights.
My pleasure.
I feel like I'm ready to dominate week 5.
You got this.
All right, everyone, good luck this week. We'll see you next time for another Deep.